My name is Dr. Brandolyn Andrus, and I am a member of the Yavapai College Justice Institute. I serve on the advisory board, and I'm also the chair of the Yavapai College Respect Campaign. Both of these groups work together to promote a culture of respect and civility and open dialogue. So it's no wonder that these two groups found common ground with the MLK committee. And we've very much been enjoying active collaboration with this group. I think it's been maybe 9 months, a year that we've been working together. And this event is a fruition of this cooperation, our celebration of Juneteenth. So a few things before we get started. We do have some Yavapai College swag. So please be sure before you leave to take some sunglasses and pens and pencils, clippy things for your chips and other bags. And I think that's it. If you are a student and you are here for extra credit, please be sure to sign in. And a fun fact about me, so in my work at Yavapai College, I'm a member of the faculty, and I am an art historian. I'm very fascinated by symbolism. A lot of my scholarship focuses on that. So a few years ago, I made this, which explains the symbolism of the flag that you see over here, the Juneteenth flag. So be sure to, if you would like, to take one of these flyers that explains the very fascinating symbolism that really, I think, very effectively embodies what this holiday is all about. So I very sincerely welcome you and thank you for coming to the college to attend this event. I will turn it now over to Robert or Jim. To Jim.
All right, thank you. I'm Jim Helbling. I'm with the Martin Luther King Peace and Justice Committee. And we were just thrilled that we were able to collaborate with the Yavapai College on this. First time we've done that. And it's gone pretty well so far. And so I want to thank Dr. Andrus and then also Professor Monahan, who's in charge of the Justice Institute, for all the cooperation that they gave us and getting everything set up and allowing us to use this beautiful venue. And so, So Martin Luther King once said that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And so what we have on our panel are people that have been great at being great for a long time because they've dedicated their life to service. And they all represent different service organizations within Prescott. And so the way this is going to work, Robert Chigog is going to take over from me as the Master of Ceremonies, and then we're going to have them answer predefined questions for us. There will be a group question at the beginning, and each one of them will have 2 minutes to answer that question. And then after that, they'll each have 10 minutes to answer an individual question. And then at the end, there'll be a second group question that will sum things up, and they again will have 2 minutes to answer each one of those. And we have Georgianne from our committee here, who has a red lantern. Do you have it?
It's over there.
Okay, she has a red lantern she's going to be waving if you guys are getting close. Yeah, those too long. So just be aware of that. But yeah, we anticipate this going very well. We do have a sign-up sheet for our Martin Luther King Committee in the back. If you're interested in joining our committee or just learning more about what we do, please sign up and give us your email address so I can contact you. And then we do have food. So we have snacks in the back now, and then we also, through the generosity of Panera, have 50 sandwiches. And so we have a lot of Panera sandwiches. We have vegan salads too. So we have something for everybody. That will be served after the question and answer session, which I left out because after the last group question, we are going to have a question and answer session. And that's going to take us however long that takes. We plan on being done about 5, and then we'll have a half-hour break, and then the band Creative Culture Band is coming up from Phoenix, and they will be playing, so we'll have live music out in the courtyard. Sorry, it's a little hot, but it'll be 5:30. I checked yesterday, and the shade was just starting to move over the dance floor, so it might work out okay. But please join us out there. Just listen to music if you don't want to dance. I'm going to be dancing, but if you guys want to join us out there, that'd be great. And so I think that's all I've got. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robert, and he will take it from there.
Okay. I want to first talk a little bit about Juneteenth. Okay, it was June 19th, 1865, when Major Gordon Granger arrived at Galveston, Texas, and announced that the slaves there were free. Now, the slave owners knew that they were free, but they didn't tell the slaves. And so for 2.5 years, the slaves were in servitude, not knowing that they were free. In January of 1865, the 13th Amendment was passed, was ratified, and it indicated that there was no slavery in the United States, except if you were a criminal and went to prison, then they could work you as long as they wanted. Then the Jubilee, it was called Jubilee at first, and it was mostly a church function, and it was held at churches. And as the functions at the churches grew and more people, they realized they needed a bigger space. But at that time, blacks were not allowed in the city parks. And so a group of ministers and black businessmen purchased 10 acres of land, and this land had a pond or river on it, and one of the functions that they had was a fishing contest. And when I researched this, I was really surprised to find out that there was dance competitions, there was food, there was fishing, there was arm wrestling, okay, and there was real wrestling, so that just really caught my eye because I'm a wrestling coach. There was baseball, but they didn't have the proper equipment, and so it was called stickball, and they made their own balls, and they used a stick as their bat, and that probably explained why later in the Negro League, the baseball players there were better than the ones in the regular league, because they had that little stick, okay? Then in 1930, Texas had a proclamation that recognized Juneteenth. And then in 1979, it became a state holiday in Texas. And Texas was the first state to have it as a holiday. In 2021, Joe Biden made it a federal holiday. Now, at the back of the room, you might find, they're maybe all gone, beads. And Sonia brought these beads, and these beads are the official colors of Juneteenth: pearl white, red, and blue. Also in the back of the room, there are some handouts with Martin Luther King quotes on them, and those are free for you to take. And they also have a respect. You have a handout back there as well, the sheet, and then a little card about respect, the program here. Okay, so first I want to introduce our panelists. And we have Jane Harrison. She was born in Ohio. I'm not going to hold that against her. Since I'm from Michigan. Ohio and Michigan, we don't get along very well. And she moved to Arizona in 1992, and she served as a bilingual Christian radio station, as an assistant outreach to a large church, working with lower income community members. She had a prison ministry. She helped operate a food pantry and after-school programs for children. She moved to Prescott in, when did you come to Prescott?
Well, it was December of 2017.
2017, okay, and right now she is working with People Who Care, and it is a non-medical support for people who are shut in or have other disabilities. Kendra Hobson is the minister at St. Luke's they changed the name, St. Luke's Christian Center for Ministry, and she has also worked with young people to get them ready for college and help them fill out their college application ASVAB. She has been involved in several things in the community as a teacher, Sunday school teacher, an associate pastor, a choir member, and various events around her ministry. She's been here since 2015. In 2018, she was ordained as the pastor of her church, and for the past year and a half, she's been involved with the Quad Cities Interfaith Council as the chairperson, and involved with the Martin Luther King Committee, and also the Christian Center for Ministries since August of 2024. Glenn Johnson is a retired financial service professional who served as the vice president of both Wells Fargo and New Century Mortgage Corp. Glenn believes that everyone has the ability to pay God's gift forward. He serves as a treasurer and on the board of directors for Prescott Area Shelter Services, and he feels that this service is his moral responsibility. Allison Lochner, I mispronounce her name, I always just say Allison. Okay, she came to the Prescott area in 2011, and she was working with at-risk girls in a treatment center. Then in 2018, her journey took her to the Coalition for Compassion and Justice. And she started off as the assistant director, and she is now the executive director of CCJ. Since CCJ has gained recognition for its innovation and approaches to housing and played a pivotal role in organizing the battle against homelessness. In 2024, she was honored to be the winner of the Prescott Women's Magazine Social Justice Award. She is not only a leader, but she has a compassionate advocacy to change and contribute to the collection of efforts to prevent homelessness in our community. Sedona Ortega was born and raised in Prescott and has been involved in community projects and initiatives. She is an alumni of the Launchpad, one of my favorite places, Launchpad Teen Center, and she did an excellent job last weekend at the rally. If you were there, she was one of the 5 keynote speakers at the rally. She's also involved in politics, being a field manager for the J. Ruby for Prescott City Council campaign. She is entering her senior year at Reed College. Great. So, with that, there was one other thing that we didn't announce. There are cards, white cards like this, and I tried to hand them out to as many people as I could, but these are question cards. And when we get to the question and answer session, you write your question on this card, then someone will bring it up here, and then I will read the question so that everyone can hear the question, and then if it's directed at a panelist, that panelist will answer the question. So if you don't have a white card, you need to get one. Okay, so we're going to start with our first group question, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Jane and go down to Sedona. Okay, they have mics, and there's a button on the bottom to turn it on. Okay, here we go. The first group question. What life experience has most influenced your philosophy on how you run your organization?
So, is this on?
I'm with People Who Care, a nonprofit organization based here in Prescott. I have kind of a twofold answer to that. One is my Christian upbringing. My dad always said that I had his build on the outside, but my mom on the inside. She was a very compassionate person, and so I think those family values and Christian values have a lot to do with the way I manage People Who Care. Also, I would say my past work experiences. I've seen qualities or characteristics in past supervisors where I either want to emulate that or I don't want any part of it. And so I try to be, always have an open door policy and involve my team in just everything that we do as an organization so that they feel a part. I'm not a micromanager. I hire them to do their jobs.
Okay. Pastor Kendra?
For myself, my biblical principles are what guides me, and I would say loving your neighbor as yourself, and then having the Lord as my Lord and Savior. That also helps me to interact with others in a loving way and also be able to serve others as need be.
Hello everyone, Glenn here. It's great to be here. That's a great question. I looked at it in a couple different ways. I have kind of a twofold answer too. I grew up in a broken home. I was on my own since I was 16. Saw a lot of things that you probably shouldn't see when you're 16. God gave me the gifts to move forward from that, and I was able to have a very successful career. My belief is that when people are in that situation, it's their moral obligation to pay it forward. So being experienced in the homelessness area was a big motivator for me. But the big thing to me that I think was really impactful is I managed a very large call center for Wells Fargo for many years. And one of the things that I was tasked with was teaching what was called financial immersion or financial health. This is a one-week program that we taught to people who actually work for the bank, which is kind of a scary thought if you think about it, that we're having to teach bankers about financial health. So we did that. And during that time, my wife and I were weekenders in Prescott for many years, and we determined that it was time for me to think about retiring and move to Prescott full-time. I was able to obtain a job with Wells Fargo at the smallest branch on the planet. So I went from well over 200 employees to 5, which was a gift in and of itself. But the reason that I was moved here and the reason that the person hired me was because of my community service background in Phoenix and my financial health background. One day, these two wonderful ladies showed up from Pass looking for a donation for annual tea. We went ahead and gave them a beautiful Wells Fargo cookie jar. And they got back, they left, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, this is a homeless shelter. First thing these people need is some sort of financial education. So I reached out to the ladies who came to my office. They directed me to Carmen Frederick, our executive director, and I said, Carmen, I have a program where I can teach your guests about financial health. And she said, can you start yesterday? So that's how I got involved in the past, and it became just a very, very, very near and dear to my heart. And after a few months, they actually asked me to nominate me to be on the board. So for those past 6 years, I've been able to support PASS in our community, and it's just been nothing. It's been nothing but wonderful, I guess. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison, as you can see from the giant picture above me. I am the daughter of a 40-year veteran of a Phoenix police officer. So my dad was a Phoenix police officer. Many of those years he worked as an undercover narcotics officer in the late 70s and early 80s. My upbringing was weird. But I was brought up with an innate sense of right and wrong. From there, I actually started working with adults with developmental disabilities for the city of Peoria. I coached Special Olympics for well over 10 years. And what I noticed is that there were people that were different from others, whether it be they had a developmental disability, whether it be they didn't communicate like everyone else, and I saw that they were being treated differently. So I have this very strong fight for the underdog. Throughout my career, I've always worked with people, and I've had a very strong sense of it does not matter if you're different, it does not matter if you're like me, if you think like me, look like me. We are all human beings and we all deserve respect. That respect and sense of right and wrong is how that's my leadership skill. There are certain boundaries we don't cross, there are certain things that we don't say, do. I have created an amazing team that also shares those views, and I think that that's why CCJ is so successful at what we do. As far as, I will echo what you said, I'm not a micromanager. If I have to micromanage you, you're probably not a great fit for my team. So I always allow people to do what they do, and they do it well, so thank you.
Hi, my name is Sedona Ortega. I am here representing the Launchpad, but I am not the director of the Launchpad. I am not an employee of the Launchpad. So I don't run the organization, but one of the things that got me involved in the Launchpad and the reason I wanted to continue to be involved was because it's an organization where they always welcome people in. And I was a member of the Teen Advisory Council, and with that council we ran a campaign called the Better Together campaign. And I remember one of the early stages of that campaign, we received a pretty hateful letter from someone that was who essentially misunderstood what our project was really about. And I remember we sat down, and Courtney, the executive director, sat down with us as a council, and we talked about that because it was hard for many of us young people had not experienced that sort of hate towards us before, or something like that sort of experience. And Courtney reaffirmed our project, and then she invited us to welcome that person in rather than push them away. And so she encouraged us to reach out to them and invite them to talk with us. And I think that's one of the most amazing parts of the Launchpad is that commitment to whenever someone is skeptical or oppositional to the Launchpad's mission, Courtney is so dedicated to bringing people into the space rather than keeping them away.
Thank you very much. The first individual question goes to Jane. And Emile Cartier once said, "Nothing is more dangerous than an idea when it's the only one you have." What is the best way to maintain a flow of ideas?
Okay, this took a little bit of thought. It's much more philosophical than the other questions on the page. But I think the point of the quote is it speaks to the danger of becoming stagnant in our thoughts. As a leader of an organization, I typically will pull team members into a conversation. We brainstorm about ideas, try to come up with a wide range of possibilities, talk about alternatives, options, trying to keep an open mind. If we decide to try something, one of the things I like to do is to set some goals and to try and get, kind of target the direction we're headed. And I think it's important that if you do try something, that you evaluate it objectively and see if that's going to get you to the end result that you want, the goal. If not, sometimes it's okay to change direction, but to just always try to remain creative, think outside the box. I also bounce ideas off staff. And so having a good, reliable sounding board, I think, is really important in anything we come up with. I mean, we always want to be evolving and developing as a staff and coming up. People who care basically tries to keep people at home, keep them safe and independent. So we always look at the mission that we have and what we can do to accomplish that mission for the people in the Quad Cities.
Thank you. Pastor Kendra, as a leader in your local community, what does being a servant leader mean to you? How do you show up as a servant leader?
Being a servant leader to me means that you don't lead from the front, but you lead in a position of servitude, which sometimes means you're on your knees praying for others, serving them in a heart posture of what can I do for you, not look at my title and what can I get out of you. I imagine it like driving a bus. I'm the bus driver, and everyone that I serve are my passengers. And as I stop and let passengers on, I'm providing the service of getting them to their next phase in life or in that season that they're in. I provide safety, a great atmosphere, education, sometimes laughter, sometimes holding their hand, whatever is needed while they're in that phase of their journey to get to the next level, whether that's a congregant at my church or a passerby in the grocery store, someone that's in need somewhere else, a student that's in my classroom, or others. And when it's their time, I have to be also grateful for the time that God has allowed me to spend with them and let them on their journey. I have to open the door to let them go. Sometimes people are just so loving you don't want to let them go out of your life, but you have to entrust God with the next phase of their life and be willing to also let them go on. With being the chair of the Quad City Interfaith Council, I also try to make sure that we as a group are as effective in the community as possible with serving others that also, like Ms. Allison said, don't look like me, don't share the same background, no matter what that is. It's my responsibility to show up as best as possible as a servant, and in that, hopefully others following behind me will see that's great leadership. I want to be like that, and that will inspire others to be great leaders as they follow.
Thank you. Glenn, how do you generate more volunteers? Is there a volunteer application, volunteer training, or an open door, open exit policy?
Well, that's a great question. At PASS, we love our volunteers. We have currently between 100 and 120 volunteers. How we go about getting our new volunteers is in a myriad of ways, if you will. Obviously, any event that we have, like this one, if anybody's interested in volunteering, I'll ask right now, right? So there's one way. Another way is really, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. We have different types of volunteers, for instance. We have meal providers. So every evening, an organization or a family or an individual brings meals for our guests. And we have actually, there's, as you know, 31 days in a month, but we have 50 meal providers. People continue to call us to be meal providers, and we tell them, sorry, we're kind of booked for meal providers. Our other volunteers, we're fortunate. We have a lot of our volunteers come from a previous guest. We had a wonderful story that was shared with me last night at the board meeting. about a gentleman who's now volunteering for us, who, one of the things that Pasc did is we started a transitional housing program a few years back where once the guests leave our home, they move into one of our properties that we own at a very reduced rate, give them time to learn to pay their bills again, take some more financial health, and just kind of move forward. It's kind of a launch pad for them, if you will. But one of the exciting things about that is that this gentleman, we had just bought a fourplex, super excited about it. It was a disaster, we had to rehab it, and it was a lot of fun, but a lot of work. This gentleman was living in a tent with his kids, right in the park off of Sheldon, and he was able to get into one of our apartments, and he was a great tenant, had worked through our case management, because we still provide case management to those folks. And I found out yesterday that he just purchased a home for him and his kids. To be able to see that transition from homelessness to stability is amazing. And our volunteers have so much to do with it. And the reason I bring that story up is that he's one of our volunteers. He's paying it forward. And when we see that, it just encourages so much to keep doing what we're doing. We have another set of volunteers. We have maintenance volunteers. My life group at church, there's this wonderful man who's retired who said, you know what, I'm super handy with things. Can Pasc use any help? Well, Pasc owns 4 properties, and I own a screwdriver. And that's about it. And so he stepped up, and he's now a maintenance volunteer. This guy is spending 20 to 30 hours a week taking care of our properties because he found it was hard through God to provide that mission. Really, our volunteers come from everywhere, from every walk of life, from every economic case, however you want to phrase it. And it's interesting because we put on an annual tea, some of you may have been or have heard of it. It's a big event that we do every year. It's a fundraising event, but we were talking about it earlier, and it's really not a fundraising event to me. It's a community outreach to me. We generate a lot of volunteers from those types of events. And then one of the things that we do that's really great is every year we have a big get-together for our volunteers. And we have them share their stories. And we have our guests share their stories. And it's about 2 or 3 hours of people just reveling in the accomplishments that Pasc has been able to make over the years.
Thank you. Allison, when you've had to say goodbye to a volunteer who has not performed up to your expectation, how do you handle it?
I hide in the bathroom. No, it's awkward. Luckily, we have not really had to do that. CCJ, when I first started, one of the prior executive directors came to me and said, Allison, I want you to make sure that whatever we do at CCJ, that we are client-centered. We are not staff-centered, we're not volunteer-centered.